Good morning, everyone, and welcome to University Unitarian Church in Seattle, Washington. It's Sunday, September 20th, and I am delighted to be here today with my good colleague, Beth Chronister, our pianist, Dwight Beckmeyer, cellist. Special occasion today with Meg Brennan, and our tech crew, Byron and David. My name is John Luopa, and I'm the senior minister here, and delighted to welcome you to our virtual service this morning. On a rainy Seattle day, which has sent all of us into ecstasy. We've been waiting for this rain all summer long, and you wouldn't think we get enough of it all year, but we are like children in the rain. This weekend is totally wonderful. We invite you to join us in many of our activities, which you can access through our e-news and website, and call a particular attention to our Wednesday evening Vespers service, which will happen again this week, Wednesday at 7 p.m. And if you have a moment and some time to join us for this quiet, more meditative service, we would love to have you join us. Thank you. Let us begin the service this morning.
Good morning. I call us to worship with these words from the author Betty Smith from her book, A Tree Grows in Brooklyn. Dear God, she prayed, let me be something every minute of every hour of my life. Let me be gay. Let me be sad. Let me be cold. Let me be warm. Let me be hungry, have too much to eat. Let me be ragged or well-dressed. Let me be sincere, be deceitful. Let me be truthful. Let me be a liar. Let me be honorable, and let me sin. Only let me be something every blessed minute. And when I sleep, let me dream all the time, so that not one little piece of living is ever lost. welcome to worship this morning. Welcome to University Unitarian Church. From wherever you are joining, it is good to be together on this morning. Would you please join me now in singing our doxology? The words will be on the screen, followed by hymn number 207, Earth Was Given as a Garden.
Friends, beginning today, we have invited a number of members, beginning with board members, to introduce the offering section of our Sunday morning worship service. And we've asked each of them if they might give a brief testimony as to what UUC has meant to them and why it is important for them to support it. So we are delighted to begin today with Rosemary Daskowitz, who is the president of our Board of Trustees.
Hi, I'm Rosemary Daskowitz. When my daughters were younger, I thought it was really important to provide them a place where they could begin their own spiritual journey, where they could begin to think about how they would answer life's big questions. As an atheist, I wasn't sure I was the best person to provide that myself. I'm so grateful for UUC's religious education program, which provided that to them over the years. I'm very grateful for those of you who have chosen to be RE educators, because that's not a calling I would ever be able to handle very well. I try to give in other ways. And that's what I think of every week when we say together, this church is a community of ourselves. Its energy and resources are our energy and resources. Its wealth is what we share. When we contribute to the life of this community, we affirm our lives within it.
As we enter into this moment of prayer and memory, I want to acknowledge that many in our community and in our nation come to this day grieving someone whose courage and conviction changed this country for the better. Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg passed away this past Friday evening at the age of 87 after a lifetime of working for equality and for a future for her children and our children. May her memory be a blessing, and may we remember her through actions. I also want to acknowledge that this last week saw the number 200,000 reached in terms of confirmed deaths from coronavirus. 200,000. And that outside of this incomprehensible number, we pause to remember that each single death is mourned in its singularity by the families, friends, and communities who are left to remember the person who died. So with these heavy hearts, we come together. Would you please breathe with me now, entering into this moment of prayer and meditation. Holy oneness, great mystery. We always knew that sanctuary was more than a gathering space. It was the music and laughter, the generations smiling upon each other, bodies relaxing after a week of efforting and holding on so tight. It was the way sunlight would stream through the windows and seem to illuminate the light within each and every person. On some level, we knew that sanctuary was a way of being, the feeling of being received and held, an altar to the holy and an arm outstretched in a moment of crisis and a time of chaos. We always knew that sanctuary transcended the building and was not bound to an hour on Sunday morning, and yet we grieve. Grieve for the familiar sacred spaces. Grieve for the feeling of togetherness sheltered by the same roof and our shared faith. Grieve the milestones we won't witness and the memories we will miss. Grieve not having this place of peace within the urgency and worry of our lives in the world. From wherever you are, breathe together into this tenderness. Breathe into the vulnerability of feeling untethered, unsure. Noticing the poignancy of missing what is precious. Holy mystery, mystical union, in this absence, let us become the presence. Let us be sanctuary and scatter this healing wherever we go, fostering peace in anxious times, remembering that light within ourselves and in one another, stretching out a helping hand in a time of crisis or chaos, receiving and holding life. Broken, burning, beautiful life, and saying, I will never forsake you. Here, come to the altar. There is room enough for all. The holy is right here. to these words and these longings, I invite you to add the silent prayers and meditations of your own heart. I close with this song. Make us aware we are sanctuary, each made holy, loved right through, with thanksgiving. We are a living sanctuary anew. May it be so, and amen.
Friends, I'm sure you join me in yearning to be back in this space, sitting here in these seats, singing these hymns with this kind of musical accompaniment. I can see you out there, and I know you're eager to be back, and someday we will, and we will rejoice in being all together again. I'd like to begin this morning with a poem written by Robert Frost, one of my favorite poets, and I think perhaps a poem familiar to many of you. It's called Mending Wall. It's the story of two farmers who agree in springtime to walk the stone wall that divides their two properties. And after the New England winter, of course, when the ground freezes and the frost lifts the soil up, some stones on the wall will topple over, or hunters will come through and knock walls down, and wherever the stone falls on either side, that farmer or person will pick up the stone and place it carefully back on the stone wall. Having grown up in New England and lived there for many years with stone walls on our properties, I know just what this is all about. And I invite you, though, as you hear the poem, not to take it too literally. You see, poetry is imaginative language, which I think comes a little harder to those who are more scientifically and rationally, analytically inclined. They want to get to the literal facticity of the words, of course, and may get lost in the larger symbolic meaning. So this isn't so much a poem about a stone wall as it is a poem about how we deal with limits in space and in our lives. Robert Frost, Mending Wall. Something there is that doesn't love a wall, that sends the frozen groundswell under it and spills the upper boulders in the sun, and makes gaps even two abreast can pass. The work of hunters is another thing. I have come after them and made repair where they have left not one stone on a stone. And they would have the rabbit out of hiding to please the yelping dogs. The gaps, I mean, no one has made them or heard them made. But at spring mending time, we find them there. I let my neighbor know beyond the hill, and on a day we meet to walk the line and set the wall between us once again. We keep the wall between us as we go, to each the boulders that have fallen, to each, and some are loaves, and some so nearly balls, we have to use a spell to make them balance. Stay where you are until our backs are turned. We wear our fingers rough with handling them. Oh, just another kind of outdoor game. One on a side, it comes to little more. Then where it is, we do not need a wall. He is all pine, and I am apple orchard. My apple trees will never get across and eat the cones under his pines. I tell him, and he only says, good fences make good neighbors. Spring is the mischief in me, though, and I wonder if I could put a notion in his head. Why do they make good neighbors? Isn't it where there are cows? But here there are no cows. Before I built a wall, I'd ask to know what I was walling in or walling out, and to whom I was like to give offense. Something there is that doesn't love a wall, that wants it down. I could say elves to him, but it's not elves exactly, and I'd rather he said it for himself. I see him there bringing a stone grasped firmly by the top in each hand, like an old stone savage armed. He moves in darkness, it seems to me, not of woods only and the shade of trees. He will not go behind his Father's saying, and he likes having thought of it so well. He says again, good fences, make good neighbors. Robert Frost, Mending Wall. Friends, I think that what I'm about to talk about this morning just a little bit is something that has become consistently the most important principle in my own thinking and in my own living. And it is a principle which I see demonstrated, and the need for it demonstrated so painfully often. And yet it is a very difficult principle to accept. Like a wall, there's something that doesn't love a principle like this. And the principle is that all life is lived under limitations. This is a simple, obvious statement. Maybe a few examples might help. Consider life on our fragile planet and the limitations of it. The seasons are caused by slight inclinations of the axis of the earth, just slight inclines, and we have spring or summer or fall. That slight inclination, however, could make life as it is known impossible on this part of the planet. So delicate is our distance, you see, from the sun. There is very small leeway there between life and its extinction, either because of extreme cold or enduring heat. We have various layers in the atmosphere, and we worry duly whether or not, if we destroy any one or more of those layers, life can be maintained here as we know it. We worry about building up refuse from our life on the planet so that it becomes a hothouse in which life as we know it would no longer be possible. Every week, as the refuse trucks come through my neighborhood, I look out the window and I think, I am only one citizen of a small town in a small state in a large country in the world. And I am sharing my refuge with a landfill, most likely, that may be there for hundreds and hundreds of years. The solar winds change their direction just a little, and whole sections of the country or planet are threatened with drought. We see it repeatedly. If the winds do not come back again, life as it has been known is no longer possible. If the ice on the polar ice caps, Arctic and Antarctic, melt or continue to melt, they may raise the oceans so that cities 100 miles inland may be totally covered. Life is lived under limitations. It is a biological fact, and we know of no other life. So it is with human life, of course, on the planet. The great and final limitation on our human life, of course, is death, isn't it? All of life is lived under that limitation. What enormous differences that does make or should make to you and to me. Again, I remember growing up in New England and having served in some of those old New England churches where the burying grounds were right adjacent to the meeting house. Walking through them during the days of the week, I would look at the old gravestones and see on those from the colonial period and the earlier Puritan period the words memento mori on the top of the slate. Remember death. Remember there's an end. Remember there's a limit. Use your life accordingly. Life is a limited, partial thing for us that we have for but a while. And that life which we have is maintained, as is life on the planet, on very delicate levels within very narrow bounds. How much pressure of air can a person stand? Go up 15,000 feet, and you cannot live as the creatures you were down below. Go down 100 feet below the surface of the ocean, and you cannot live as the creature you were above water. The heat level of the human body, how narrow a limit makes it possible, 5 degrees variation for a very long time, and you will destroy your system. You will die. And how delicate the heartbeat, I certainly know that. Existentially, my friends, and you know and you remember that too. If it falls out of rhythm, it can destroy your life in the snap of a finger, or a little clot of air, or a little clot of blood itself, in my case, and life is over. It's gone. And so we live always with very great limitations and restrictions. You know, consider the limitation of knowledge. There is nothing I press on you more than this because it's really so basic. I would say that neither you nor I really know fully the world out there. We only know the world out there as it comes through my senses, you see. The map of the world is in our head, in our heads. You take in things out there that the eyes see upside down, the brain turns them around. Our knowledge comes through this instrument of the brain in our heads. That instrument is determined by your blood pressure, your worries, your fears, by your lack of training, by your inadequacies, your failure to subject yourself, myself, to certain conditions or to recognize them. And so our knowledge depends upon our perspective as it comes through all the confusions and complexities and twists and turns of our brains and of our human experience and of our memories. And as May Sarton said, memory is capricious. So we don't know the thing in itself, what philosophers would call the thing in itself. We can't know it. Only the thing as it seems to be, to me and to you. And then, fortunately though, we are able to share with each other our perceptions, our understandings of things, and find corroboration and legitimation for the accuracy of our perception or for the inaccuracy of our perceptions. And we get to live with more than what we would call subjective knowledge. You see, we build up a community of understanding and wisdom, hopefully. I would also argue, and this is going to go against the grain of most liberal people, most progressive people, and there may even be a heresy trial here at UUC for me on this one, but I would even argue that we have a limited capacity to change anything. That is a limitation which we ought to learn better how to live with. A limited capacity how to change anything. We are, each of us, only a part of a long and complicated beyond human imagination process. We are only one piece of it, and yet we think of ourselves as the center of the world. Well, we may be the center of our little world, but we certainly aren't the center of the larger world. One piece, sometimes brilliant, strong, sensitive, vigorous, and effective as any of us may be, we are still just one part of an enormous process. And we are each of us so totally interdependent that you cannot change anything very much. Not yourself, not myself. Not the president. Not anyone can change the human process very much, no matter how much individual power you may have. I know you're already thinking about your email response to this, and I'm going to look for it this afternoon, but our individual lives, I think, are dots in a seemingly endless process. We act as though that were not true most of the time, and I think that lack of understanding contributes enormously to our sense of malaise and defeat and cynicism and bitterness. We have a limited ability not only to change anything very much, but also a very limited ability to help any other person or change any other person or to be changed by that person or helped by any other person. We are separate human beings, separate minds, separate confusions, separate orientations, with those totally peculiar integrations and developments, and no one can enter into our minds. I cannot get into yours, and you cannot get into mine. No one under hypnosis or therapy, nor can prolonged intimate knowledge help you enter another person's mind. This is a very complicated subject, I think, and it warrants a great deal of discussion. And those of you who are wiser than I will help me go deeper with this, I trust. But let me share a beautiful, touching statement from a most remarkable woman, Eleanor Roosevelt. Her statement discusses the powerful dynamic in her marriage to Franklin Delano Roosevelt. And as you who are familiar with their story know, there was great hurt and great trouble, yet enormous creativity in that partnership. And she made this statement 5 years after Franklin died. She said, "Real maturity is the ability to look at oneself honestly and to acknowledge the fact that there is a limitation in myself. Here is a case where, because of some lack of experience or some personal incapacity, I cannot meet a given situation. I cannot meet the need of someone I most dearly love. Either you must allow someone else to meet that need without bitterness or envy and accept it, or somehow you must make yourself learn to meet it." She continues, "There is another ingredient of the maturing process that is almost as painful as accepting your own limitations and the knowledge of what you are unable to give, and that is learning to accept what other people are unable to give to you. You must learn not to demand the impossible or be upset when you do not get it." Close quote. Wow, the limitations of how much we can touch another person, change another person, understand another person, in the limitations on how much we can love another person. We try to teach our children to love others and love some in greater measure, but we do not teach them, because we've not learned yet ourselves, how to live with and accept maybe the only kind of love that another person may be able to give to your child. There are limitations also in our achievements. Obviously, there must be, if we can't change things much. And we therefore learn not to hope unwisely. I put that that way. We ought not hope unwisely. And that is what Eleanor Roosevelt was saying, I think. The test, then, is that even while not expecting too much, you do not give up by trying. You have to learn not to expect too much at the same time as you keep trying, because you never know how much you can achieve. We must learn to be satisfied with reasonable progress. There is no perfection, no absolutes, so you learn to grow with whatever skills and abilities and capacities you have, and you learn to make these qualities better and to refine them, and you learn how to grow out of your selfishness a little and out of your cruelty and brutality, but you never completely overcome any of these perfectly natural human characteristics. Good people have not given up on the hope of achievement simply because it is not perfect. And so it is with justice. You know, when we live in the storms of life and we advocate for justice, I think justice is like reaching the shore, the destination. The storm has passed. The sun returns. We are on solid ground. We are relieved to have survived the storm. But the sunshine doesn't last forever because the storms return. And I think we are facing this today on some very deep and frightening levels in our larger communal life. Learning the limitations, learning how to find value and satisfaction in reasonable process. And so, my friends, I've taken as one of the truths of my own experience this lesson. All of life is lived under limitation, even though there is in every one of us, as Robert Frost said, something that doesn't love a wall, but wants it down. There are great and wonderful values in being able to accept this necessity of limitation. If we can accept the fact of who we are, we will have a little more loving concern for human life and for the troubles and distresses and the failures that belong to you and to me and to others. We know that there is no perfection. Rather, we will experience a quality, a deeper quality of understanding that can always broaden. And I believe that this quality of understanding is discovery and growth and celebration. And I think it is a keystone to what I would call religion. Another value in being able to accept our limitations is that you will have the courage and the confidence to try and to fail. We are going to fail. We know we are. So few things are more important than to teach our children than this, not only how to win, but how to live with defeat and have it become our teacher. No one who has ever lived has not at some times failed. So you can have some courage and confidence to try to express what you feel, express your vision of the world as it comes to you, because you know no one can do anything other. You have a most remarkable instrument. The world will come through you in a way that is completely unique to you, and you will have the courage to try and express it because you will have the confidence of your knowledge, you see. I think that is the statement of Ruth Bader Ginsburg's whole life right there. She was true to the perceptions and the need for justice in the world, and she was willing to stand up to power on its behalf with no guarantee of success. Certainly no guarantee of permanent success. From it comes understanding, you see, and a quality of forgiveness. What did she say about her own marriage and about other kinds of working relationships? Sometimes it pays to be just a little deaf, not completely attentive to what's going on there. We need more of this. and less of the intolerant rejection of those who don't quite make it up to the level we think they ought to make. We need some understanding and forgiveness for the terrible things that we are and that we do to each other and will go on doing. I think it's the only ground for hope. To be hopeful means you are not defeated because you see imperfection and impropriety. You know they are going to be there in the best of persons and in the best of places and times. You know it even before you start. You do not turn cynical when you see someone becoming selfish or hateful or bitter. You know those qualities exist in you as well. You simply hope to make the world a little better than you found it. Life is a process. It's a great pageant, mysterious, magnificent. Our victories must be won over and over and over again. Sometimes our victories turn into the most terrible defeats, and confusion mounts, and hopelessness threatens. And sometimes our defeats turn into most marvelous and unexpected victories, you see. It is our destiny to live with uncertainty and incompleteness. There are never anything other than partial victories. The process is open-ended and unpredictable. No guarantees, no completions, no assurances that are not new beginnings. We have come a long, long way in our loving care and concern and in our achievement in building a culture, a hoped-for society. This is the great human adventure. It is really the story of life on earth, and it should bring great joy to those who lovingly and intelligently participate in this privilege we call life. Amen. I invite you now to join me in singing our concluding hymn, Just as Long as I Have Breath. I'd like to thank my cherished colleague Beth for her prayer today in memory of Ruth Ginsburg and of the many hundreds of thousands who have lost their lives in this pandemic and the loved ones who have remained behind. I think it fair to assume that, like so many of you, I was quite shocked and saddened on Friday evening when I heard the news of Justice Ginsburg's death. Having known how sick she was for so long, it didn't come completely as a surprise. But again, like so many of you, I think I was hoping, maybe unrealistically, that she would be able to live several more months into something that will come on January of 2021. A most remarkable human being who achieved in her long and brilliant life things that have benefited thousands and thousands of people. Someone who made the dream for justice and acceptance and understanding and fairness and equity real in our lifetimes. Someone who was courageous beyond compare, and even in diminutive stature, with the power of her convictions, she stood boldly before power and confronted it. We mourn her death. In the Jewish tradition, it is the custom that those who die on the eve of Rosh Hashanah, which began on Friday night, are considered tzaddiks. A tzaddik is a righteous one whose memory will continue forever. And she certainly is that. We are, of course, fearful for what is to come. We know that the months before us will be intense. But may I say to you, my friends, that there is another Ruth Bader Ginsburg who either has been born or is yet to be born. That person will not look like Ruth. He, she, or they will be their own person and will bring the light again to us and be a beacon for us all. We await this, and in our waiting, we must, like her, stand truth to power and confront those forces which seek to destroy us, to destroy our country, to destroy our ideals, to destroy our lives. Let us be sad. Let us be grateful. Let us be hopeful. Now, therefore, since the struggle deepens, since evil abides and good does not yet prosper, let us gather what strength we have, what confidence and valor, that our small victories may end in triumph, and the world we so desperately hope for and pray for and work for may even be a world attained to some degree in our own lifetimes. May it be so. May it be so. Amen.